Alright, so today I'm going to pull 3 boxes of ball python eggs out of the incubator, and it looks like in all 3 boxes we have some baby snakes that looks like they're completely out of the snake eggs. As a matter of fact, we actually pulled 2 of those boxes out about 3 days ago, and we set a couple of those snakes up in the hatchling rack, and then we cut open the other ones, took a peek inside. As a matter of fact, that one of those was Bobby's offspring, and we looked inside. We saw some bamboos, but we actually didn't get a really good look at the snake all the way. So hopefully today all of those little baby snakes are out of the eggs. We'll be able to pull them out, take a closer look. Maybe we'll give them some names and set them up in the hatchling rack. All right, so I have 3 boxes of snake eggs here. Should be 3 boxes of ball python hatchlings, so this is going to be pretty exciting. And I'm actually going to start with the one that we actually haven't seen yet. So this is the one that we actually didn't cut at all, and it'll be interesting to see. This is essentially Bobby bred with a normal female. It's actually the normal that I got for free, one of my very first ball pythons, and it took her quite a few years to actually breed. This is the first time she's actually bred. And let's see, it's basically a bamboo crossed with a normal, so we can expect half bamboos and half normals. And let's see if all these guys are actually out of the eggs. And wow, look at that. Those are some amazing odds right there. We had 4 eggs. It looks like we got 3 bamboos and 1 normal. That is fantastic odds. Take a look at this. And the interesting thing is that normal that I bred him with has a really kind of a busy pattern, which almost looks maybe like it kind of transferred over to these. So take a look at those. These are Bobby's babies, really cool bamboos. Those are some awesome snakes. Take a look at those. Those are some beautiful bamboos. All right, and then we have the one lone normal here. The normals are always really awesome. These are essentially the cheapest snake you can buy at the reptile shows. They're always, I'd say these are probably the most popular as far as selling snakes are the normals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull one at a time, and we're going to give these snakes some names. I actually have some names here in a jar. I actually made up some new names, cut them out, put them on little pieces of paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out just one at a time, and we'll name this one first. And take a look at this one. This is a really cool looking bamboo. There's nothing else in here. This is just a straight bamboo, and you can see on the straight bamboos how dark the heads are. And now that I see how dark this is, I'm actually thinking maybe my other ones that were possible pastel might actually have pastel, because their heads were quite a bit lighter than this. And the interesting thing is the pattern down the side. There's really quite a bit of crazy pattern on these, which is really cool. Sometimes they don't have the alien head, sometimes it's just one line of reduced pattern up on the top. This one has really quite a lot of alien heads in there, which is kind of interesting. And the alien heads are like these 2 little eyes, kind of looks like the typical alien in the cartoons, which is pretty cool. So let's get a name for this guy. This will be interesting to see what we name this one. This one's name is Thor. All right, that is Thor. So this is how I'm setting them up in my hatchling rack. I know I've been having a problem with fungus gnats trying to go over to paper. I actually ordered some little moss balls, some sphagnum moss, and I'll actually show you how I make the moss balls. Then once I get those little balls for humidity, I'll switch this over, get rid of the coconut husk, and just go to a paper substrate. But you definitely want to keep the humidity in there while they're in there until they shed. And this is, I can't even believe how crazy the pattern looks on this. I just can't get over it. I've never actually seen a bamboo with this much pattern on the sides. So that is pretty interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in there, and then I'm going to make a label with my label maker. Alright, so here's the label that I put on my rack. I just essentially just put the name of the snake and then exactly what it is. This one's real easy. It's just a straight bamboo. Alright, so I'm going to pull out another bamboo. And it's really interesting that we actually had that pattern on the side. This one kind of has the same kind of pattern, but you can see on this one, it's a little bit more faded out on the sides and the bottom. Not quite as pronounced as the other one. I guess this one's kind of quite a bit busy. I guess it's just about as busy as the other one, but usually in bamboos, most of the color and the pattern is up on the top. And it's not really down on the sides as much as was on the other one, which is kind of interesting. This is more of, I would say, more of a typical bamboo where you kind of have it more on the top. So let's get a name for this little guy. And this one is the second one of the clutch from Bobby. This one is, here's a good name, this is Lefty. All right, so I'm gonna pull the last bamboo out and we'll give this one a name as well. This one has a really busy pattern too. It's interesting that some of these bamboos are really busy and some of them just have one straight line kind of down the top middle. This is a really good looking bamboo. That is a stunner. So let's get a name for that one here. Pull out a name. Here's a good name. This is Sparky. All right. Alright, so I just have the one normal left, and this is, I'd say this is probably pretty much a dark normal. Some of them are really light, some of them are a lot more yellow. This one is pretty dark, and you can see it's nothing, there's really nothing in here. It's just a straight, normal, classic, wild type ball python. He's a really good looking snake. And let's get a name for that one here. Alright, here's a good name. This is Porky. Hopefully he won't fast for a really long time. Alright, so here's another box. This is actually a het caramel albino crossed with my spider pied. So everything's going to be 100% het pied and 50% het caramel albino. And then we'll see either spiders or normals. So we'll take a look in here and see what we have in this box. Wow! Look at all these snakes. Man, that is a bunch of snakes. I didn't even realize I had a box with this many snakes in it. Take a look at all those beauties. Wow, that is really crazy. That is a bunch of snakes there. So let's take a look at these. Looks like, let me pull some shells out here. That is, see, it looks like we might have 5, and these are really big, beefy snakes. I can't believe how big and beefy these are. It's pretty incredible. Looks like we have 3 spiders and 2 normals. So take a look at these spiders. I always just love the spider genes. Spiders are really awesome morphs. I know some people dog on them because of the head wobble, but you know, it's for my experience, I haven't seen a whole lot with the head wobble. Take a look at this guy. You can kind of see if he has a head wobble. Not really too bad. Not really at all. He's got a pretty good balance there, I would say. Sometimes they kind of corkscrew and sometimes they're kind of stargazing a lot, but this guy looks really good for a spider. Let's take a look at this guy. And they say it's kind of random. The interesting thing is the father of this clutch actually had quite a bit of a stargaze to his head. And they say it's not genetic, so you can't really predict if it's going to transfer to the offspring. And I'd say these guys don't really have much of a head wobble that I can see. Not at all. Let's see this last one. There's actually been quite a few people at the reptile show saying, hey, where's all the spiders? I want to buy a spider. And let's take a look at this one, see if he has a head wobble. Not really at all. I don't see any head wobbles on any of the spiders in the whole entire clutch. As a matter of fact, we put 2 of them up in the hatchling rack before, and I didn't see any head wobbles on the other ones at all. These are really looking really good. So I hit the odds really good. No head wobbles at all that I can see on any of the babies. And these are really stunning snakes. As a matter of fact, I've had quite a few comments under one of my last videos said, hey, we want to buy a spider. They are really impressive snakes. So if we take a look at, I'll just show you the 3 spiders kind of on top of each other. Let's see if we can get them all out here. And these, take a look at that. That is a bunch of really beautiful spiders. Take a look at those. That is stunning. And they are really, really good looking snakes. And let's take a look at the normals. So the interesting thing with the normals, some people say that you can actually see het pied markers on these, and some say that you really can't. I would say on this one, you can really see some lines right along the belly here, especially right in here. This is kind of what we're talking about when we say tracks along the belly. And that looks like pretty strong het pied. I'd say out of all my snakes that were het pied, this is probably the strongest het pied markers that I see out of all my snakes, right along the belly there. And the funny thing is so these are 100% het pied too, these spiders, and you really can't tell on any other morph except the normal. As far as I know, there's really no markers that you can see except only on the normals. So let's take a look at, let's see, which normal were we just looking at? I'm getting them all mixed up. I think both of these, I think this is the one I was looking at. So this one, I would say this one has some really good strong markers too, right along the belly. Look at that. That's a pretty good het pied marker right along the belly, right along here. So usually for your normals, you won't see that. You'll see more of kind of what's on here. It's really light and you won't really see the lines coming down the belly. Well, this one you can't really compare either because this is different than most normals as well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna set these up in some tubs and give them some names. And what we'll do is we'll start with this guy right here. And the funny thing about the spider is not only do they have the spider pattern on the top, but they also have what looks like calico coming up the sides, and it's not actually calico, it's just part of the spider gene morph. So I'm going to give this guy a name first. Let's see if we can pull a name out for this guy. How about a spider named Cobra? That's pretty funny. Alright, so this one has a little bit more complicated genetics. This is the label. His name's Cobra. Spider, 100% het pied, 50% het caramel albino. Alright, so I'm going to pull another one out. We'll take a look at it. We'll go with another spider. These are all, I'd say these are really close together. It's really tough to figure out one from the other. I guess this one might have a slightly different pattern if you look really close at the pattern. Maybe a couple spots on the tail, which is pretty cool. His head stamp is kind of interesting. On this one they have like a clear round spot on the head with a line around it, which is really interesting. And pretty much clear, little tiny spots on the belly. So let's get a name for this one. Pull a name out of the jar. This one's name is Terminator. All right, Terminator. All right, so I'm gonna grab this last spider out of here. And if you notice, I'm not actually figuring out the males from the females, and a lot of people actually, what they'll do is they'll take it and they'll actually pop the hemipenes out. And I was actually talking to the veterinarian at the reptile show, and she was like, never, never, never pop hemipenes on a snake because you can do damage actually trying to pop the hemipenes out on the base of the tail. And actually I've tried it before, and it takes almost more pressure than I'm comfortable with to actually figure out the males and the females by popping the hemipenes. So based on my veterinarian's advice, I only use a metal probe and go into the pocket of the tail. And I found if you actually probe snakes that are just hatching, you know, just out of the egg, and you use a metal probe, I find it's not very accurate at all. Last year I had a lot of mistakes on my males and females, and when I went to check them before the show, I had a lot of them wrong. So what I'm gonna do this year is I'm actually gonna feed these guys quite a few meals, get a little weight on them, and then I'm gonna go back and probe them and figure out the males and the females. So this one actually needs a name as well. So let's pull another name out of the hat and we'll see if we get this one a name. This one, here's a good name. This is Sunshine. All right, so I want to go over to my normals, and the funny thing is last year everyone came up to my table at the reptile shows and they were like, hey, where are your het pieds? I'm looking all over for anything het pied, 100% het pied, and I didn't really have anything last year. I think I only had just 1 or 2 out of all my hatchlings, and they sold right away. So this year I'm gonna have a bunch of stuff that is all het pied. These are 100% het pied, and it's kind of interesting. I actually have another het pied that has some crazy patterns, one of my holdbacks from last year along the sides, and sometimes they have the alien heads and sometimes the patterns are all completely jumbled up. Sometimes they have the tracks along the belly and sometimes they don't have any markers at all, and you can't really tell the het pied. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a name for that guy. Let's see if we can find a good name. Oh, he's trying to get out. This is Slayer. All right, so here is the last one from that clutch. Just a regular, normal, classic, wild type ball python, 100% het pied, 50% het caramel albino. And you can see this one, I mean, if you look at it from the top, it pretty much looks like just a normal ball python. You really can't see the pied het markers until you kind of look at the bellies. This one's really pretty obvious. You can see them right along the belly, right? That is really, it's really obvious. That is definitely 100% het pied. So let's see, let's take a look at a name for this guy. All right, this is ELECTRA. All right, so this is the other half of Bobby's clutch. It's actually the bamboo crossed with my normal number 1. And we'll see, this is actually, we actually pulled some snakes out of here, and these were just the eggs that we put back in here that we cut, and they were still kind of cooking in the egg. I didn't want to take them all the way out. And we'll see what actually came out of the shells. Wow. I would say we definitely have a lot of bamboos this year. This is pretty incredible. So I actually had 4, and take a look at this. I actually have, well, actually, wow. I actually have 1 normal and 3 more bamboos. Take a look at that. That is really incredible. That is a bunch of bamboos. And the interesting thing I noticed on this one, he's got a pretty light head, which is kind of interesting for, we know 100% sure that this doesn't have any pastel in it. So it's kind of interesting, the difference in the shades of the head between like these two, when we know neither one of them has pastel in them. If I can actually get them down on the camera and actually show you the heads on these crazy squirmy worms. Take a look at these guys. If you can actually see them. I guess they're both pretty dark. They're not as light as a pastel. And then we have this one last one here. This is normal with no het pieds or het anything. So take a look at this. This is actually what a normal looks like without the het pied markers on the belly. You can see it's not quite as strong on either side of the belly. So that is the difference between a het pied and a not het pied. Of course, with the het pieds, you can't, it's not always 100% that you'll actually see those tracks, but you will in some cases. So what I'm gonna do, actually what happens, what actually happened, so I'm actually filling up my ARS 1039. I have one more tub here, and my ARS 1039 is completely full, and I'm gonna have to go over to my ARS 1065 and start filling up my really big rack, so that'll be interesting. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull one snake, and we're gonna get a name on this one. Look at him a little bit closer, and we'll get a name. And the cool thing in this year is if you're gonna buy a snake from me, you actually get a snake with a name, and you get to take a look at it before you actually buy it, which is pretty cool. So this is Bobby's, it is a Bobby Jr. here, little tiny baby. Take a look at that. And these hatchlings are so intense. I was so glad I bought Bobby as a really high contrast snake, because you can see it definitely transfers to the young. Really high contrast bamboos, which is really awesome. So I'm going to take a look at a name for this one. How about this name? This is FANG. Alright, so let's pull out one more bamboo and take a look at this one. Here is another Bobby Jr. This one's really good looking. Seems like all these bamboos are really coming out nice. There's some last year that were extremely reduced. I just had a really thin line. There were some that were actually really dark and not as a high contrast as this. But I'd say most of them, 90–95% of all the ones that came out last year were really bright and clean, just like this one. So let's get a name for this one. This one is Boss. Alright, so here is the last bamboo of the clutch. Take a look at this one. This one seems like it has a little more pattern on the top, not quite as much of a pattern on the sides. And I'd say bamboos are pretty much like snowflakes. You'll really never see two bamboos exactly the same. As a matter of fact, last year I did kind of an episode, a video, and I lined up all my bamboos. I think I had like 20 or 25 bamboos. And it was amazing how different they were from one snake to another. It was pretty incredible. This is a really good looking snake. So let's get a name for this guy. Alright, this one is Rocky. Alright, so here is the last snake of the day, this little normal. This is the straight normal, no hets or anything, no other genes. This is as normal gets, just a straight normal ball python. And this is pretty much, I would say, this, yeah, it's funny, the very first show that I sold ball pythons, I was like, all right, everyone's gonna come in and buy my bamboos and this and that. And the very first snake that I sold at my very first show was a normal ball python. As a matter of fact, I think like the first 3 or 4 that I actually sold were all normal. So that is pretty incredible. I had no idea how popular the normal ball pythons would be at the shows. It's pretty crazy. This one is actually named Hamburger. Alright. Alright, so take a look at this hatchling rack over here. This is completely full. I filled the whole thing up all the way down to the bottom, and I actually put those last snakes down in the bottom. I had some that still haven't shed down here. Some that I put up earlier, these guys have not shed at all. And then these kind of the new stuff on the bottom and up here. This is the one I thought was maybe a pastel bamboo. Take a look at this one. This is one of my other ones from another clutch. Look at how reduced this bamboo is, really reduced. I thought maybe it was pastel because of the lighter head. I don't think it's pastel. I think it's just a regular bamboo. This is pretty much all the early stuff that hatched out. And then over here, I actually started filling out my ARS 1065, and this will probably get filled all the way down to maybe 3/4 of the way down with hatchlings from this year. I still have quite a few eggs in the incubator. And if my reticulated python lays eggs, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with those. I'll probably have to buy another rack for my retic, because I really didn't plan on actually her laying eggs and getting all those retic babies. And if she ever lays eggs one of these years, I'll have to figure out the expansion. Sometimes what I'll do is, while I have the eggs in the incubator, I'll actually go ahead and purchase the equipment, because I know the sale of the snakes will pay for the racks. All right, so you can definitely tell that Bobby here was definitely busy with those females this year. Those bamboos are essentially going to look just like Bobby when they grow up. It'll be pretty amazing. There's nothing better than the bamboo morph. I think it's hands down probably my favorite morph out of all ball pythons. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.